Hello there, I'm Sconchulus, and this is TEPPEN Deck Tech, where I present to you decks that are fun, strong, or interesting. Today we are playing Thick Boys and Girls. These bodybuilders are the biggest numbers in the meta, backed up with some nice interaction and comeback mechanics, and the strongest mechanic that we always lean into is being big and swinging face. True big body energy, embodied by Zangief and Marisa. Zangief is the simpler card, so we'll start here. He's an 8 MP 5/7 with heavy pierce, an amazing anti-red effect, and when HP becomes 12, gains us 3 MP. The last effect is insane momentum with everything else on the card, so it needs to be a priority every time you play Zangief. The only situation I would play Zangief without it is at the end of the game when the enemy is below 5 life, and the only effect that matters is 5 attack and heavy pierce. Of course, to get there, you gotta play a good early game, and Geef mostly helps the mid game when we have Heart Tank. So, our next thick boy is Marisa. A bit more complicated, but she is our ideal turn 1 play. With the proper setup in hand, Marisa summons another unit which will refund MP and either be protection, an unreactable reset, or the combo. If we do hit combo, Marisa becomes a 6/12 and the summon is a 4/4. And with Marisa's protection and spillover, this is probably the scariest turn 1 of the meta, besides the princess. We also have the Source of the Evil to make this pop off more consistent. This card gives +5 HP, the exact amount we need to combo, and also sets up heavy pierces or spillovers, and lets us spam Heart Tank. It's a lot for 2. So between drawing this, drawing Lucius, and summoning Lucius, the combo is pretty consistent, with one caveat: we gotta mulligan good. For her summon, Marisa also requires 2 6 HP or higher units in hand, so if you draw Marisa and 2 6 MPs, always keep the hand, and to make that easy, Want to Come With Me will fulfill the entire condition. So even without Marisa, if you just draw this card, for your mulligan, always keep. Double Toil and Trouble also helps draw into combo, and is a killer comeback mechanic, but I would only really keep this for your mulligan if you already have 2 other 6s with the Lariat. It's still a risky hand. I also love any hand that can start with MP boost Li Fen, or admittedly I talked it down, but Zangief with Lucius or Source is a killer start as well. And the last 1-card mulligan is Tireless Reporter Frank, the one-man army with one goal: get in, get the shot, and get out. But he's gotta survive for like 3 days, it feels like. 2 attack cycles, but you get the point. Frank the Tank is a 7 MP 4/7 that if he gets a single attack in, summons another big unit from deck, basically paying for his own cost in full. And if he gets a second attack in, he will start literally paying for his own cost. This effect reads a little weird, but whenever Frank is returned to the pocket by his own effect, you gain 4 MP. The fact you can play him again immediately when that resolves makes the play pattern pretty close to toxic, balanced only by how rare it actually is to hit the combo, and it's just doing green things anyway. So to make that happen, be aware of how Frank will play out in every matchup. Against red, you better have Source of the Evil, or at least Lucius, ready for the detonate. Purple, you're probably safe, unless they jury you. More predictable, black just has their 2 legendary destroys, and other green players just have seals. So always consider the risk and what you have to respond and what you have to respond to. Sometimes turn 1 is the best chance to make Frank work, but often it's a lot later. For example, if you can play him in a 1 attack lane, his chance of getting the 1 attack in goes up a lot. Always fully plan your Frank plays, because they will win you the game when they work. The rest I'm gonna speed through a bit. Mad Transfer Rajang swings face for between 4 and 12 on average. Discarded Prague Hagenmer is actually the best stats in our whole deck, and sometimes he can learn to use the Buster one time. Edmund Honda I want to skip over, but mostly he's just here so we have enough big units for Marisa. He's also the best summon off of Frank, basically, but he's hard to find opportunities for otherwise. Antagonist stance makes black players cry, and now Darkness Illusion players too. Madly Charging Trio is the best seal ever, as long as you time it right. And Chinatown Chun-Li is the best reset ever, as long as you meet the conditions and play her in the right lanes. Under pressure, I mess this card up every single time, but she is so strong to one-shot any unit in the game. Here's the deck QR for you, and with all that said, let's get into it. Game 1, we are up against the star of the new meta, as popular as she ever is whenever she's good, and Jill is good, so I figured I'd put this first just to show how green can run its game plan against red. We'll start things off with an early Marisa, which we do not quite hit our combo on, and we don't have anything to make it combo in hand, so our opponent is able to go for probably Antibody's strongest turn 1 with Bosch, getting themselves a Roaring Typhoon or something like that. We will play down our Tireless Reporter Frank. Our opponent will go for Guile, the card that most easily counters it, and thankfully we have Source of the Evil prepared to protect our Frank. Our opponent will go for Antibody Activation, which will cut down our Frank following his attack cycle, but we are able to go for the Heart Tank on the Marisa we summoned to get him another attack cycle, which will force our opponent to use the detonate they get from their second Guile to stop our Frank's second effect. He has already put in a ton of work, and we thank him for his services. We will get in, our opponent will play down Ted and Snowflake, filling up their pocket. I don't think it got the Explorer. They will go for Cheer, and we will seal the 2 shields on Guile to maintain our momentum. At this point, the only thing that really matters is Marisa, and our opponent is going to struggle even with the damage that they typically get to bring it down. We will get very greedy and wait to go for our Zangief so we can clear their board, and our opponent will go for the one thing that actually does deal with Marisa, but at this point the deal has been altered, and they must pray we do not alter it further. Zangief is the only card that matters, and even though they can survive for a single attack cycle, thanks to agility, that is not going to stop Zangief from getting in his lethal push and taking Game 1. Game 2, we're up against a deck that's a bit more off meta, but one that has a unique matchup against us, and admittedly, we're playing this match entirely because of the card in the far left, and because it's gonna be really funny when we hard counter their strongest play. So honestly, if you really care, skip ahead to when that actually happens, because it's gonna be sick. Our opponent will start out with Alice, one of the most dangerous cards in the deck, but we have Disarm at the ready in our opening hand to deal with it. And because we went for Want to Come With You, we already have our Marisas ready and can get as greedy as we want, going for double Lariat. Our opponent will completely play into it, refusing to lose any MP, and we will go for our Marisa, which summons Lucius from deck, and our opponent will ascend their Jury, which goes to the wrong unit. They will go for a Halt, which will only be a Halt and not a summon from deck, and they will return their Jury to the deck, knowing that they will need it to deal with our deck. They will make great use of their Halt, using a Watcher and a Eternity and that other guy to do some damage, but we had a second Marisa at the ready, the game-ending play pattern for our deck, and now that we have that, our opponent can go for a Halt, but they've already kind of missed an opportunity or two that they could have gone for the Darkness Illusion, and now that they finally do, it's a little too late to really get them back in this. We've got a massive amount of pressure, and our opponent is clearly trying to go for their next Darkness Illusion. They will go for Pepperoni Pizza, and it's just not enough at this point. We can go for Zangief, and we don't even need to go for our antagonists, knowing that Zangief will, at this point, be able to carry us, or our middle lane will be able to carry us. Our opponent is not putting on sufficient pressure, but when they go for Dancing with Death, we will choose to end the game with our antagonist's dance. And our opponent does not even surrender. They will let us play it out, getting the flashy replay. We just have to wait for the Halt to expire. They can do nothing about it, and we take Game 2. Game 3. We are up against Green's most toxic, strongest deck that seems to never die, played by a very top player. But admittedly, this match is from about a week ago, so you don't see a lot of Jake anymore, and this opening is a bit of a demonstration of why, because they had no choice but to play right into it, playing their second Jake down into our field, and their felines are not doing much without better units to support them. They are not able to stop our Jake from getting in either of his attacks, and they are forced to protect their Jakes while we go for Zangief, which is a much more dangerous unit. We are able to seal their Jake, sealing the shield, and allowing Zangief to die to hero art, because our opponent is still a top player. They're still pretty good at the deck, and we will wait and let our Frank MP kind of go to waste, actually. But thankfully we are able to go for a huge follow-up and deal with their big board, summoning Marisa to the field, and we will go for Chun-Li to deal with their Rajang, but unfortunately for us, our opponent has the hard counter with the Princess, which will allow Rajang to get massively boosted up, and when we go for Li Fen, it will also reset Rajang's attack, but thankfully for us, any hit to Rajang will kill it at this point, and Li Fen has enough HP to survive the 4 and not allow us to take lethal. We will buff up our Marisa to keep us in this match, and now our opponent is the one who has to play from behind. And unfortunately for them, that is one of the absolute weakest things that Devil Breaker is known for. We are able to just ride it out with our Li Fens getting in lethal, and we take Game 3.
It's up to me to find my true purpose.
Here we are again, and the more time passes, the more I think it's undeniable that this deck is a part of the meta and is probably not going anywhere for a few seasons. Besides its inherent strengths, like the huge pop-offs and the heavy piercing, this deck has meta strengths, like the fact that it counters the most popular purple deck, Ebony and Ivory Bounce, along with giving any black player a hard time, and red players also hate this deck. It has solid matchups. If nothing else, this deck is a huge gatekeeper for what isn't meta. Because the more I play against this deck, the more each one of these individual cards proves themselves to be a monster. This is also an easy deck to pick up that teaches you most of the skills for other decks, while having a decent ceiling of its own. It's basically the easiest recommend I can have for any new green player. Play this and you will have a great time, I think. And I haven't put together a budget version yet, but hopefully I can put one up here real quick. Otherwise, this deck's not that expensive in the first place, so that's my excuse. As for the next episode, I'm definitely going to be making a video for Charge Shot, so keep an eye out for that in the next couple weeks, and next season I'm hoping to have a tier list up, so let me know if you guys would rather have a tier list for every legendary card like usual, or if you would like to have a meta tier list ranking the different hero arts and decks. Thank you guys for watching. Please like the video if you liked the video, subscribe if you subscribed. As always, I'm Sconchulus, and I'll see you in the next one.